Welcome to another episode of Courageous Healing. I am the producer and co-host, Victor Escalante, and joining me in the studio, as usual and customary, is Adele George. Adele, welcome.
Hey, I'm happy to be here again. So happy to be sitting down talking to you again.
How are you today?
I'm wonderful.
Now, last week, Adele, was the 29th anniversary of your being held hostage at the bank. As we related the story in the podcast as well as in the book, in all formats, I might say, audio, digital, and in print. You can now get the book in all three formats.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I kind of favor the audio.
I do too. I love a good audiobook.
It's a really good listen. If you're taking a road trip, it's only, a couple hours?
2.5 hours.
Yeah. So check it out, listeners.
Yeah, listeners. I mean, the thing is when Victor and I wrote the book, we wanted it to be, it's a lot of information and it's a hard read, but it's an easy read. So if you buy the print copy, it's 2.5 hours. If you listen to the audiobook, it's 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
So, we really wanted you to be able to get what you needed from it in one sitting.
Exactly. And some of the comments that we're hearing from readers is I couldn't put it down because it was written in such a format that you wouldn't want to put it down because it's a short read one and it's very condensed. It's like you're getting the meat of the story in every chapter. We're not filling it up with all kinds of fillers. It's like we give it to you straight.
Yep. A lot of people are saying it's very well written and it's a very easy read. I'm really, I know you are too. We're really proud of this book.
We are.
We're really, really proud of this book. And every time somebody gives us feedback or leaves a review on Amazon or Goodreads or Audible even now,
Yeah.
it absolutely thrills us.
Yes.
And we appreciate it.
So Adele, let's do a deep dive.
Okay.
What was it like for you to come up on this 29-year anniversary of the hostage situation and the ordeal that you went through?
This year, because of the book and because this is so present in my life, the anniversary it was something that I remembered. In previous years, because of the work that I've done, sometimes the 17th and 18th come and go and I forget. And I it's not something that, you know, um would come up until like a few weeks later where I'd realize, oh shoot, this passed. But
Mhm.
this year it's significant in many ways. And I've really been thinking about this. The reason that I find it so significant is obviously because I'm coming from a place of gratitude.
Yes.
Without being married to my ex-husband and going through what I went through, I wouldn't be the human that I am today. And the other thing is that my gosh, it's 29 years ago.
Mhm.
And that's something to really breathe in and realize that, as we as trauma survivors move further and further and further away from the trauma experience, we don't have to carry it with us.
Why do you think that other survivors should make note of this and realize that again, as time passes, you are literally distancing yourself not only in time but emotionally and mentally because your brain is rewiring itself, and the more that time passes, the more that the memories become faded,
Yeah.
and again the feelings are going to be released little by little, if not in therapy, just through you having other emotional experiences that are more fulfilling and that they tend to override the unhappy, painful memories, because again that's what the brain is doing all the time, in rewiring itself.
Yeah. And in some ways, you just answered the question. But for to kind of talk about it from my perspective, you can't live your life. I mean, you can if you choose to, but you shouldn't live your life clinging to the things that um make you a victim. And instead, you should shift and become a survivor. And while that sounds just like it's a change in words, it's really a big nuance between the two. And going through and making the effort to actually um heal has enabled me to be present in my day-to-day life in a way that I may not have been able to have done or do so because I could have caused my mental health to continue to decline.
Right.
By hanging on to something like this and not wanting to let it go or not wanting to move past it or accept that happened and move forward, um, those things can cause mental health issues.
Sure.
And being diagnosed with PTSD and not doing the work to work through the healing process, I could have made my PTSD worse. I
Sure.
could have had worse anxiety. I could be in a completely different way right now that even thinking about it, like I would makes me feel sad. Thinking about the potential that I by not doing I wouldn't want to be there.
One of the things that comes to mind, and as I'm listening to you, is we did a previous episode about identity, and what we're talking about here is really defining your identity as opposed to your experience defining you.
Yes.
And in that come the I am statements of I am a survivor is going to feel totally different than I am a victim.
Absolutely.
That's why it's important to listen to the language that we use with ourselves and the labels we put on ourselves, because that's going to, again, define what we feel and who we think we are.
100% because I mean, I'm thinking about like okay, last week, 29 years ago, I was in a hostage
Mhm.
situation. I was scared for my life.
And you are not that Adele by
No,
any means, by any
no.
means.
I
You,
walked out of that situation
yeah,
not knowing we've all said this, your life changes in an instant.
sure.
I walked out of that situation not knowing up from down.
Yeah. And
Like I had absolutely no idea. Like all I knew was that it was over.
well, you
And
were in shock. You were in shock, and so the brain tends to block out and create amnesia around the most painful aspects of the memory, so that even if you tried to force the memory, I know that in writing the book, we wrote that you were debriefed at the police station soon afterwards, after the exam, and, I bet you if you were to read that testimony that you gave, you wouldn't even recognize it because you wouldn't remember it the same way.
well, and that's the thing. And you and I have sat down and I've told you the stories and we've talked about
Mhm.
this. I honestly cannot recall this in chronological order.
Yeah.
I can recall instances and I can recall situations in that 27, 24 hour time span.
Mhm.
I can tell you specifically how it ended. I can tell you things that happened, but I couldn't say that this is the order in which everything happened. I can
Sure.
only speak in incidents, and I think that yes, I agree that in some cases, two things. The further you move away from it, we all know we don't remember things in much detail. It's just
Yes.
life. It's
Right.
just the way that our memories are. But
Sure.
the other thing is that I needed to remember that stuff for about 5 years because of the
Yes.
court
Of the trial. Yes.
the trials. I needed to remember that stuff. And after that, it served no purpose.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, some of our listeners, Adele, might be interested in knowing what was it like? It's like, as best as you recall, how did you feel when you were being walked out of the bank? and into an ambulance. Do you recall what that was like? Or what was running through your
Actually
mind?
actually, I kinda do because it was very surreal.
Okay.
Um, the whole event was very surreal
Sure.
because it was in some ways, it felt like an out of body experience, like,
Yeah.
"This can't be happening to me.
Right. You
Y
dissociated as a
What the hell
defense
is going
mechanism. Sure.
how did I get here? What
Yeah. Yeah.
happened? Like, this is weird." So, as we were walking to the ambulance, at this point, they cleared the building, and Chad was on the ground, and he was surrounded by SWAT team members, and they had weapons all on him, and he was like spread eagle on the ground.
Mhm.
And so I remember looking at him, and I remember him saying something, and I'm paraphrasing at this point, but come on guys, I'm not going to do anything. I'm okay. It's all good. I'm going to be like, I'm not gonna cause any trouble or something, like, I don't remember. And
Mhm.
I remember just walking back and I was like, "It's done. He's gone."
Mhm.
That's the last time. No, it wasn't necessarily the last time I saw him, but it was the last time that he would ever be in my personal space.
Right. Right. Okay.
And for me, the sense of I'll be honest with you, when it was over, there was a huge sense of relief,
Sure.
obviously.
Sure.
But the sense of relief was not just that it was over. It was that the marriage was over
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
that I was safe.
Yes.
So for me, actually, when it ended, um, granted, we know that this was 27 hours, 24 hours. There was a little bit of delirium.
Mhm.
I was actually weirdly happy,
Mhm.
kind of giddy in
Sure.
some ways, like, and so which was why they wanted to give me like tranquilizers or Valium or something like that, like we put in the book, because they were just a little worried that I was kind of loopy in the space cadet, when in truth I was breathing a huge sigh of relief,
Mhm.
not only that I survived, very very unfortunate situation, because obviously there was a person in this situation that did not survive.
Right.
And I won't downplay that. But I survived this situation. And at that point, I'm digesting what the hell just happened. And it's like that, it's like, holy fuck.
Okay. Now,
And
so after, the medical exam, you were taken to a hospital, is that correct? Or a clinic?
yeah, we were taken straight to a hospital because they wanted to do rape kits and things like that, and that didn't happen on me because I was on my period. But
Okay.
they wanted to make sure that we were okay, so
Okay.
took us straight to the hospitals.
And of course, they wanted to collect evidence. Okay.
Yeah,
So from there, were you transported to the police station?
My dad brought me there. Yeah,
Okay.
we left the hospital. I don't remember going from which is very interesting. I don't remember going from the hospital to the sheriff's office.
Mhm.
But I remember being in the hospital, and I remember being in the sheriff's
Yeah,
office.
that's interesting. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
I know my dad brought me there. I
Where
know
was
that.
your mom in all of this? Was she absent?
No, she was there. She was at the what did they call the little place where everybody was while they were waiting? Mom was in there, like, with all the parents and family members and all of that stuff that was, like, across the street from the bank. She was there.
Okay.
And so she was there at the hospital,
Okay.
with me. And so she stayed for a few minutes, and then she left. And because at that point, they knew that I had to go to they knew from there that I needed to go to the sheriff's office.
Okay.
So my dad said, he would take me. And and so she had, once they had let me go in the hospital, she left.
What was it like at the sheriff's office? How many interrogators did you have?
So it was just one, and it
Okay.
was a little small room, a little bigger than like a walk-in closet. And there was a camera. There was a what do you call that? The window that you can see through on
One
one
way, the
side.
one way mirror.
Well, yeah, there was a camera on the other side of that.
Okay.
So I knew that there was somebody, like, doing the filming. And then he was recording, and it was just me and him in the room. And
Was he a forensic psychologist or what was his role?
as far as I know, just a detective.
Okay.
I don't even remember his name. I don't remember, much about him. I just know that he was a detective and he just was like, all right, start from the beginning.
Okay. What was his primary focus other than just getting you to relate the story and the details?
A complete debrief. It was
Okay.
basically for me to sit down and talk about what happened and then to talk about like how I got to that point.
Did you break
Yeah.
down in retelling the story?
I don't think so.
No. Okay.
I don't think so. I mean, and then we say this in the book. At that time, I was smoking a little bit.
Yes,
I smoked his entire pack of cigarettes
I
in like
remember.
2 or 3 hours.
Yes, I
Like,
remember that.
so I don't really think at any given point immediately after that I broke down because there was such an immense sense of
Well,
relief.
you were in shock also, and when you're in shock, you're basically running on default mode to where you're listless in that you're not feeling that many feelings because it's a defense mechanism that the brain runs so
Well,
that you don't have a complete psychotic breakdown.
and to be honest with you, also, I think that I knew that I had to give them the information and I wanted to give them the information. So for me, there was, I think, that moment where you just shift gears and you do what they're asking you to do.
Okay.
I cooperated. He asked questions. I answered the questions. I told him all the stories. I think I was there for like 3 hours,
Okay.
like sitting there telling him everything. And so, and, and so I was very intentional. I mean, not to say that I wasn't in shock, but I was very intentional about making sure to give him like all the information.
Okay. So from the sheriff's office, you went home to your father's house?
Yep, I was living with my dad at the time,
Okay.
and we were living in my grandmother's house, and, so we just went home, and, a friend of ours who was happened to be we were in Thibodaux, and he happened to work for the Thibodaux Police Department, and because there was the concern of, like on the news, it had showed my grandmother's house as the house that he and I lived in, which, by the way, on the amounts of money that we were making, we could have never afforded that house, even if it was rent-free. There was a little concern that perhaps I would come home to, some news media in my driveway, and he was in the driveway and nobody was there. We came home, we pulled in, and then the family, about an hour later, everybody else, I got and went, took a shower, and I was hungry, and I wanted a cocktail, I was hungry, and I wanted a shower, and they didn't let me have my cocktail. They made me take a half of a Valium. And I was just hanging out with everybody and like eating and just, like so this
As though nothing had happened.
yeah, like I mean, how do you well, here's the fun thing. So I was walking back into my dad's house and the phone rang and I answered the phone and it was my best friend Aunt Celeste.
Okay.
And she's the first person outside of everybody else that I talked to. And she's like, "Oh my god, are you okay?" She was I think she was kind of speechless that I actually answered the phone.
Okay.
And because dad was like, "You might as well answer the phone. You know it's for you, right?" And I said yes. So I answered the phone and I said it was 27 hours of my life and it's all over. And she reminds me that I said that to this day.
Wow.
And so that was the first thing I said out of my mouth. And I just told her, I said, I'm just happy to be home. I'm tired. I want a shower. I want some food, and that's basically what I did. It was a quiet day. Family came by, some dad's friends came by, and they all brought food and hung out at the house for a little bit. And then that half of Valium kicked in, and I woke up in the middle of the night with the worst freaking headache. I've never taken anything like Valium or tranquilizers or anything like that in my life.
Hmm.
At that point, I still haven't.
Yeah.
And I think between that and probably just coming down off of any adrenaline, I woke up and I felt like somebody had hit me in the head with a baseball bat in the middle of the night.
Wow.
But, when I put my feet on the floor the next morning, I just got up and got dressed and, and just was like, all right, this is my life now. And yeah, I can't I don't think I didn't go anywhere, obviously. I didn't go to Walmart or I didn't go to the grocery store. And I didn't feel like going anywhere because first of all, people were coming to the house like crazy and bringing food. I mean, we're living the South.
Sure.
They're all going to bring you food.
Sure.
So we had copious amounts of food and care and visits, and it was honestly, it was kind of wonderful to have that. So, people were just there like for a few days. And then of course, things quieted down after that.
Sure. Now, you eventually were convened with all of the other survivors
Yeah.
to do group therapy. What kind of a time span happened from the time that you were released to the first session of therapy? How long did that take?
I think it was within the week, within a few days. It
Okay.
wasn't very long. It wasn't like it wasn't very long. And it was the first time that they had gotten us all back together in the same room at one time. And and it was I want to say like probably just like 3 or 4, maybe 5 days later, they got us all
That's
over.
pretty soon, yeah. And
Yeah.
what was that like? What was it like for you?
It was a little awkward and a little uncomfortable, because I was walking into a room where my ex-husband and my situation caused all of this.
Right.
And I didn't really know what to do. And when I started talking about the relief of and really young in your 20s, you don't recognize a lot of like the way that you feel isn't necessarily how everybody else feels.
Right.
So for me, I'm still sitting in this sense of relief that it's over.
Mhm.
The women in the group actually had the opposite effect, where now they're terrified, they're terrorized, they're, scared to go anywhere in the dark, or they, are scared of guns or loud noises, or, they have their own thing. So my experience after was completely different from theirs.
What seemed to be the theme with the other women other than feeling, angry and violated, and what did they seem to be expressing as a common theme that they all shared?
Genuinely, they were traumatized.
Sure.
I mean, we're a small town,
Mhm.
simple life. You work in a bank, you're a bank teller.
Yeah.
You're working in a bank. You're not working somewhere where life is very complicated on a day-to-day basis. So when you're living a very simple, very happy, go lucky life, and then all of a sudden it's not just that the rug was pulled out from underneath your feet, your whole world was turned upside down. You witnessed a murder, you were raped, and you were held hostage.
You're listening to Courageous Healing Podcast. We'll be right back.
Big news! The inspiring book Courageous Healing is now available in print, ebook, and audiobook. No matter how you like to read or listen, you can now experience the powerful story and life-changing insights inside this book. Don't wait. Start your journey of healing and transformation today. Order your copy now and take the first step toward your courageous healing.
We now return you to the Courageous Healing Podcast.
And
You
listeners, that happened to every woman that was there,
Right.
because Chad released all the men, and if I remember correctly from writing the book, Adele, there was one or two customers that were in the bank when he showed up,
He
and
ran them all out. He ran them out. There was no men, and there were no men working. There was one gentleman that worked that day, but he
Mhm.
had left before Chad showed up.
Okay,
And so there were a couple of customers in the bank, and he ran everybody out. So the only people remaining were us female workers,
yes,
people that work there. So, but yeah, but I mean, their life got completely turned upside down in an instant, and it wasn't like it was an automobile accident. It was 27 hours, 24 hours of something that was,
right.
traumatic. And you didn't know. I mean, he shot that girl, he shot Pamela very early on in the
Right.
incident, which left us all wondering whether or not we were going to make it out alive.
That must have been really traumatizing to see your dead coworker there during
Oh,
the whole ordeal.
oh, that's an image I'll never forget.
Yeah. Was she moved to the back of the bank, or she was
Oh,
there
she
with
was
all
there.
the
She
people?
stayed in the same place the whole time.
Wow. That
So
is
that's
really,
an
really,
that's an image I will never forget. It
yeah.
doesn't traumatize me anymore.
Mhm.
It doesn't haunt me. It doesn't traumatize me, but it's an image I will never forget. And in some ways, that's an image I don't want to forget.
Sure.
And the reason is because I moved through this in a way where I want to I want to honor her,
Mhm.
and so and look, I mean, just kind of jumping off of it for a second, we know that so many women lose their lives in domestic violence.
Yes.
So this is significant in that scenario. So I don't cling to it. It doesn't keep me up at night. I don't have nightmares about it, but like I can see the image right now just talking to you.
What became of your coworkers? Did you lose contact with them, or
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, I haven't talked to any of them. I honestly don't think I've talked to any of them or seen any of them since.
Okay.
I haven't. I don't even. No, I haven't talked to them or seen any of them since. A courtroom, in the
You
courtroom.
saw him in court, yeah.
Yeah, and then in 2014, when everything went back to court for the appeals for his death row, um all the appellate process for him being on death row, I had told the district attorney that if they needed me to send me a subpoena,
Okay.
I said whatever the other families want is what I want.
Mhm.
Whatever they agree to is what I agree to. Not because I wanted to remove myself from it, and not because I didn't want to be there, but simply because out of respect for them, I didn't want to take that choice away from them.
Sure.
I mean, because we know the thing I knew, and that was something that the attorney told me. No matter what, he's not coming out of jail. It's just a matter of whether he remains on death row or he gets put in, life in prison without parole. So for me, it was like, okay, well, whatever. If you guys need me to go back to court, then just send me a subpoena, and I'll be there. I'll do whatever you need me to do. But I'm not, and I'm not going to be present in court. I'm not going to go every
Right.
day, sit in court while you guys are moving through this.
Yeah.
That's not something that I have any desire to do. I didn't want to be there, and I didn't have to. And she said, "No, you don't have to." She said, "You don't have, it's not going to change the outcome of by you sitting in the audience." You know.
So, so 5 years, the cases worked through the system. Were there several cases, or was it just one collective case?
No, there were several. So there was the first criminal case, which was the one where he pulled the woman over that morning.
Hmm.
And then, of course, there was our case, which was the murder.
Yes.
And then we had a couple of lawsuits
Okay.
that had taken place, and one of them actually had went to court. So that one was 2.5 weeks long. It was very, very, very long. And that one I had to be present for and obviously sit through, for the whole time.
And that one was for negligence of not properly vetting Chad at the sheriff's department when he was recruited.
So that one, so if and I don't remember all the details,
Hmm.
but I think there was a lawsuit against Terrebonne Parish and Thibodeau Police Department.
Yes.
And so the one that we went to court for was against Thibodeau Police Department.
Oh, okay.
And I think it was because they didn't properly handle the situation with like handing him off to Terrebonne Parish or whatever. So
Yes.
I don't honestly see, that's the stuff I don't remember. I don't remember why they and to be honest with you, it was again, this was a situation where everyone else involved chose to file suit. And I wanted to support, and my attorney and my dad and I wanted to support them in whatever efforts they felt that they needed to gain restitution.
Sure.
So I was going to be there no matter what. And so while I didn't have, interestingly enough, I've never felt a sense of guilt because obviously I wasn't the one responsible for his actions.
Right.
He chose to do those things. However, I, wanted to make sure that wherever I could put myself and insert myself in order to support their process, I was there.
Mhm.
So, because when they asked us if we wanted to be a part of it, I told my attorney, I said, whatever they need for us to support them to help their case, I said, I'm there. I'm there for that.
Yeah. And how long did you live in Thibodeau? Because you wanted to put some distance from between you and this incident, and you moved away to New Orleans. So, how long did you live in Thibodeau after the hostage situation?
So I didn't necessarily move like right after, but I was dating someone that lived in the greater New Orleans area at the time.
Hmm.
So he had said, why don't you just come stay with me? You can come and hang out at my house. Um, if you want. I mean, obviously you can come back and forth, you can do, but he was just like, you can kind of come and go as you want here. So I did that. And after I don't know, maybe a month or two, I kind of was bored and I had just decided to see if I could find a little job.
Hmm.
And I went and when you looked back then, it was the newspaper. So I looked in the back of the newspaper and there were tons of temp agencies that just had jobs available.
Hmm.
So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go to a temp agency and see what kind of little job I can get. And so the next thing you know, I'm working these odd and end jobs, different places. Um, and so at that point I had pretty much like moved in with him.
Hmm.
Within like, so I would say within like 2 months,
Okay.
I pretty much moved in with him. And my dad was like, well, you can always come home. I said, I got myself a job. And um, I told him, I said, I can comfortably move around over there. I can go to the grocery store, I can go shopping, I can do things, and people don't know who I am. And there was a sense of freedom in
Right.
that where, like, when I was in Thibodeau and I needed to go to Walmart to get deodorant, there were either wonderful situations where people were running up to hug me and just, talk to me for a few minutes and just tell me they were praying for me or thinking about me or whatever. And then there was the other ones where, I mean, I literally walked down the aisle and somebody turned down the aisle at the other end, saw me, and just turned around and went in the other direction. And it was a person that I recognized and I knew they recognized me.
Yeah, because
So
your story had been in the TV news nonstop
it was
because
national news.
because it was such a high profile case.
Yeah, it was national news.
Yeah.
And so it it was just very awkward
Mhm.
and very awkward. Not uncomfortable, but awkward. Like,
Yeah.
people didn't know how to react to me, and I respected and understood that,
Mhm.
but I didn't know how to react to them, not sure how to react to me.
Sure. Lot of
Like, if
awkward.
somebody was uncomfortable, I didn't wanna necessarily walk up to them and be like, "Hey, it's
Right,
good to see you," when they didn't maybe wanna talk to me.
right.
So, a small town, you can't throw a rock down your driveway without hitting somebody that you know.
Yeah.
So, it just made more sense for me to be someplace else.
Okay.
And honestly, I was an hour away from home. I wasn't far. I was only an hour, but it was just far enough to have the to be anonymous.
Yeah, the anonymity. Yeah.
That's the word.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be to where people just didn't know who I was.
Yeah,
They didn't
exactly.
know that 4 weeks later, 4 weeks ago, I was, in a hostage situation with my ex-husband while I'm pushing my cart through Walmart
Yeah.
buying deodorant.
Yeah.
So it just that was the smartest thing
Mhm.
that I had ever done for myself. And I didn't do it at that time. I didn't realize
Okay.
how I just knew that being here in New Orleans just gave me a sense of peace.
Okay.
I didn't overthink it,
Yeah.
but looking back at it now, that was the best thing I did because it gave me a chance to heal without everyone else hanging on my coattails.
What would you tell that Adele from the past now? What would the Adele of 2025 tell the Adele from the past, given the journey that you've been?
That's an interesting question. I think I would just tell her I'm proud of her.
Okay.
She she made some poor decisions to obviously get married to Chad.
Mm.
But she figured a way out, and it's unfortunate that things happened the way that they did, but um the decisions that, she made after were she just followed her instincts, and she just kind of let life kind of lead her where she was going. So, I mean, I think that the thing that I would tell her is that I'm proud of her because it wasn't easy, but at the same time, it was and I remember saying this years ago. While everybody else was 23 years old and graduating college, I say everybody else, but a lot of people I knew were 23 and graduating college or 22 and graduating college. I was 22 and my life had just been completely upended.
Yeah.
And I all of a sudden had an opportunity to figure out who I was.
Right.
And I had an opportunity to figure out who I was outside of some serious judgment, outside of abuse, and outside of just voices that um were restrictive and were like could hold you back. Small-minded voices.
Yeah, that's a very interesting perspective, Adele. And listeners, just to give you the nuance and the context, Adele had basically defined her identity based upon the way that she was parented
Mhm.
by a mother that basically was emotionally absent, that was real judgmental of her, not accepting her as she was, but making unrealistic demands. And then, of course, your father, he was caught between his world of his music and trying to be a father and trying to be a jeweler. And so he was in your life, but emotionally, he was somewhat absent
Well,
because,
and he was going through the same thing as I was.
yes, yes.
He was
So,
going through the same thing as I was. So where it was challenging, and those voices really just, got to
yeah,
us. So at the young age of 22, all of a sudden I had to be a different person,
Yes.
or I had the opportunity to try to figure out who I was. But in order to do that, I had to go through the healing process.
I think that's a very powerful concept, Adele, for listeners who are survivors, that they get to decide who they are, not who they think others think of them, or
Yes.
even what they feel about themselves. Because even your feelings are not really the defining factor. You get to decide who you are and who you want to be based upon your awareness, your consciousness. Uh,
100%.
yeah, so that's
100%. And and just to add to that, Victor, a lot of people today, their mental health issues are a result of them not being true to themselves.
correct. Yes.
And listeners, I really, really, really want you to take that statement to heart.
Why don't you give
Because
some tips, Adele, to how you've been able to really decide for yourself in reinventing yourself over the years, not only just after that incident, but over the years? Give some listeners some tips that you would give them.
I think the biggest thing, the big tip is being true to yourself.
Hmm.
But to do that, you have to be introspective,
Yes.
and you have to shut out all the other voices. So, like someone's dad might think, because they might be a great lawyer, but the fact that they absolutely do not want to be a lawyer
Hmm.
doesn't, and they end up going to law school, doesn't mean they have to be a lawyer. And I use that example in the sense of, we make big decisions and we don't necessarily have to follow them through.
Yes.
So, be you in order to be true to yourself, you have to find your quiet space,
Hmm.
or you have to listen to the things that are shouting at you.
Yes.
And sometimes we in this country have the ability to shut things out in
Hmm.
a way that is, because you should be, you shouldn't be, you can't be. You can't do this because what about X, or what
Yes.
about Y, or what about Z? Like if you wanted to be a babysitter and that's what, because you love children, people could be like, oh my God, well, how are you going to make money? How are you going to make ends meet? What are you going to do? If you decided that you wanted to quit work for 3 months because you needed downtime, people can be very, very crass and not supportive.
Yeah.
And we as a society, for some weird reason, just are not supportive of, the people around us. And I don't, for the life of me, understand this. Why so many people have to play devil's advocate. I mean, I'm guilty of it. We're all guilty of it
Yeah.
in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
I'm not saying this as if I haven't done it myself, because I have. But it's to go into, what is your passion? What is it that you want to
Yeah.
do? Who do you want to be? I honestly, Victor, I think that maybe under different circumstances, I probably could have been happy being a teller. I
Yeah.
don't know. That my life is different now.
I usually tell clients whenever they are faced with a crisis of identity is to just sit down and with pen and paper, it's got to be done by hand. Just sit down and write, I am the kind of person that, and just write, just write. I'm the kind of person that is funny. I'm the kind of person that is an early riser. Just every single thing that you can think of. And
Hmm.
what begins to emerge is your concept of self. And
Hmm.
once you look at that, then you have a choice. Is like, is that really who you want to be? Okay. That's what your predilections are based upon your experience. But is that really what you want to be for the rest of your life? So that's where choice enters the picture.
And the other thing too is that you don't have to do anything for the rest of your life.
Exactly.
You
You
know,
yes.
you can be a multitude of things. I mean, I know I'm a person who's had the same career for not for which is apparently very unusual because most people change careers at least 2 to 3 times in their lives.
Mhm.
Um, but, to add to what you just said, another thing that was actually really great advice that was given to me was to put a chair in front of you and sit
Mhm.
down and have a conversation with your as if you're sitting in that chair as well.
Yeah, your
And
avatar.
don't hesitate switching
Yeah,
sides,
your avatar.
but just talk to yourself to get those thoughts out and to have that conversation with yourself.
Yes.
I think that a lot of people are, for some reason in our culture, people are afraid of hurt.
Mhm.
People are afraid of disappointment and people are afraid of challenges.
Yes.
And I don't really at the point that I'm at in my life now, even now, sometimes when I'm faced with a challenge, I get a little bit uncomfortable. But I don't necessarily think that people don't realize that those challenges are actually a good thing and that hurt and disappointment and things like that can be a good thing because it can bring up things that need to be repatterned
Mhm.
and change and just you can make a different decision.
And listeners, that's the only way that you grow when you get uncomfortable. Because if you're coasting along comfortably in your life, you're not growing. Okay, you're coasting, but that doesn't mean that just through more experience you're necessarily evolving. So it's when the hard knocks of life hit us, with a failed relationship, with a failed job, with a crisis, that we have to reorganize ourselves, reassess the situation, and decide for ourselves, what's our soul leading us to do.
Exactly. And know that in order to move forward, some things sometimes have to upend.
Yes.
Things have to you can't always take everything with you when you want to move forward in a different direction or when you want to do something. You have to leave certain things behind. Sometimes
Exactly.
it's places, sometimes it's people, sometimes it's money, sometimes it's starting from the bottom.
Hmm.
But those are the things that give you the grit and the gumption and the
Yes.
confidence. And I really feel strongly that when someone comes to me and they're like, for instance, I've just lost my job. I'm like, congratulations.
Yeah.
Like, okay, and they're offended, of course.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I'm like, this is an opportunity for you to make a different decision or to do exactly what you want to do or to make some changes in your life if you want to make them. So yeah, you have every right to mourn. You have every right to be disappointed and
Hmm.
mad if you lose something. Go through those emotions. You absolutely should.
Yeah.
But you have to recognize that life is not linear.
Yes.
It never will be.
That is for sure. Well, what do you think, Adele? Is that enough show?
I think so.
Any final words?
I think the biggest thing and the biggest takeaway from this is what happened 20 to me 29 years ago will never be forgotten, but it doesn't have a chokehold on me. And I think the important thing is to do the work to heal.
Trust the process, do the work.
Yep.
All right, listeners, we're going to have to leave it there until next week. Go out and have a great time.